Hey there, Solar Warriors. I'm Nico Johnson, and this is Suncast. Each week, I pull back the veil on the life and business insights of clean tech entrepreneurs building the most noble and impactful companies of our time. I hope what you learn from this conversation is a catalyst for your own growth. So thanks for tuning in, and welcome to our tribe. Hey, welcome. It's a new year, Solar Warrior, and a new decade. Are you ready for it? I am, and I'm thrilled that you've chosen to start off your new year tuning in to Suncast for this 211th episode. Time is our most valuable and non-renewable resource, so thank you again for lending us your earballs today. We're kicking off the new year with an interview that has taken me the entire 4 years of Suncast to finally nail down, but I know it has been so worth it. Dean Solon founded Shoals Technologies more than 2 decades ago, and it's one of the most well-known, fast-growing, and highly profitable businesses that I know of in our business. I'm sure many of you may know of the Shoals brand. You've possibly even enjoyed yourselves at one of the many fantastic, must-attend SPI parties that Shoals is famous for. You likely have even become one of their thousands of satisfied customers. But do you know the inception story? Well, wait no longer, my friend. Today, you will get the full details not only of how and why Dean started Shoals, but we're also joined in the first half by his protege and VP of Sales, Ben Macias. Their relationship has been one full of struggles, but also full of wild success, incredible growth, and love. Indeed, Dean and Ben appear more like father and son than mentor and mentee or founder and protege. They have both garnered deep respect in our solar industry, and today we dive into what, from their perspective, makes Shoals tick and keeps them at the bleeding and leading edge of the solar revolution. This discussion was recorded live at SPI Podcast Lounge, and my only regret is that we truly didn't have enough time to really fully unpack Dean's story. But he does give us great insight into the mind and processes undergirding the staggering success and staying power of Shoals. So get ready to tune up your skills, Solar Warrior, as we tune in to another powerful conversation here on Suncast. All right, Solar Warriors, today's guest on Suncast is indeed one that I've waited years to get. Ben Macias has my testimony that I've asked at least a dozen times. And one of the things that's true about Suncast is that I have the personal perspective. I'm going to be here for 1,000 episodes. And Dean, if it had taken 1,000 calls, I would have kept calling because I feel like your story is one that needs to be told. Welcome to Suncast, Dean Solon.
Thanks for having us.
Man, Ben Macias. Yeah, man, thanks for helping make it happen. You guys are like father and son almost. It's crazy. Like, and you're iconic in our industry after how many years now? 14 years?
Yeah.
14, 16 years. 17. Yeah. It keeps growing.
17.
We are here live at the Podcast Lounge at Solar Power International 2019. Thanks to our sponsor, Radiant REIT and Suncast Media for helping make this venue possible. Thanks also to Shoals Technologies as one of our session sponsors for helping ensure the continuity and help us get our live cast going. Thanks to Tyler Morris, who's been our technician, helping make sure that the live stream is working. We're still working through the pains of how does live cast work. This is my first foray into live cast. However, not my first foray into interviews, and we're going to jump into this one. We have a very limited time to squeeze a little bit of juice out of this young fella. So I want to know, like I already know his story, and he'll chime in, but I'd love to hear your 2-minute version of why Ben Macias had to stay at Shoals.
All right, so to start out with, I've known Ben since he's been 12 years old.
Wow.
All right, so he was in junior high school when I first met him. He was my nephew's best friend. So I've known Ben forever. And when Ben and my nephew and Alex Tucker, who's with Shoals, they co-opt at Shoals during their college years. And
started as an intern?
I did.
Yeah.
So I came over in the summer of 2010, did an internship.
And came over from?
So I was at school at Indiana University, was friends with his nephew. I came down for the summer. I was selling furniture in Indianapolis, and his nephew asked, "Hey, my uncle's got a solar company. Why don't you come down to Nashville? It's growing, it's great, it's fun." And I said, "Oh, what the hell? Let's do this." So I did that, and we had a great summer. We sold a lot of stuff.
Summer of Love, 2010.
2010.
And we were probably on 5 international trips that year.
We were. And so I was getting ready to go back for my senior year of college. I had a girlfriend at the time. Just signed a live out, contract for our fraternity house. And I was like, "All right, Dean, thanks a lot for the opportunity. I'll see you later." And
wait right there. And you weren't ready to let him go.
No, I said, F that. You're not going anywhere.
Why? Why? What?
Ben has a personality like me.
Yeah.
And there's only a few people that can actually genuinely sell and who are genuine with the way they do it. And I thought, okay, Ben, we're just going to have to tag team here. You can get your degree later on, because that's what I did. And we went crazy for quite a few years.
Have you gotten your degree?
I've since worked back towards it, so I have 4 classes to go. But I'm going to get it done. It's always been something that I've had on my list. I've made promises to several people in this industry that I was going to get it done, so I'm going to get it done.
In the time since you were an intern to now, what's been how many millions of dollars has Shoals sold?
Oh, man, a lot. Hundreds and hundreds of millions.
Hundreds, getting close to $1 billion?
We're over that. Yeah,
over $1 billion?
Yes.
Okay,
easily.
So over $1 billion. How many of your senior college classmates have a VP title and have been involved in billions in sales?
I not many.
What's funny is we go to Europe to a lot of the German solar shows, and you give them his card, and they say, "That young kid, he can't be a VP. What's wrong with you Americans? You guys give titles away like candy." And I said, "Don't worry. Between Ben, Alex, and a few others, we're hitting it out of the park, having a good time." Do they deserve that title? Absolutely.
Yeah,
you don't have to work 20 years to get that title just to feel good.
And
that was also something that, growing up, my father was a hard-working man, just like I'm sure most of our fathers were, and hard work beats anything. So you can be a double degreed in anything that you want and go to prestigious colleges, but at the end of the day, hard work pays off. So
plus, I think we're in good company with Jobs and Microsoft. Boy, I think they don't have degrees either, do they?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah. So is that right, Dean? You don't have a degree.
I never finished either. Senior year, my dad didn't have money to finish it out, and I just went and took off and didn't look back. And quite honestly, in the way the colleges are running right now, I think I'm more proud that I'm degreeless, even though I'm, senior class mechanical engineering from Purdue.
Love it.
I like the hard work versus the book smart.
So it's not readily apparent to anyone other than the three of us talking that we're against the clock here, because Ben's going to need to jump out. And I want to touch on something that folks who really know you guys know the backstory, right? But I think it's just so critical to how you all operate. And anyone who sees you now, like I said when we started off, you guys are practically father and son. But in the true sense, I would say that in that light, Ben is more the prodigal son, right?
I use that term all the time. Have I not used it 100 times?
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
I've done it with my dad. I carried a toolbox with my father from 8 years old. And by the time I was 16, I had my own truck doing electrical and heating and air conditioning, had my own tools, and had my own customer list. So I told my dad pretty much, go to hell. Yeah. I got my own customers. And after I started going to Purdue to get an education and all that, I came back, right? Because I had to go and see what the grass felt like on the other side.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's cool. You get to see the grass, but you don't realize when you're in something great to begin with, in your initial position where you're at, when it kicks ass, you don't really realize it until you go to other companies or other things, and all of a sudden you're wrapped into corporate bullshit. I don't know if I could say that on the air, but
go for it.
And find out, wow, this really sucks.
Now, the cool thing is, it's not as though, like, Ben went off and worked for some no-name company, right? Like, you opened the Nashville office for Nextracker when Nextracker had not yet been bought by Flex, right? Or was it right after?
So we opened that office probably a year into me being there. So I came on in August of 2015. That was opened in May of 2016.
And the Flex acquisition?
The Flex acquisition happened a month after I started, so
Right.
September. Yeah.
Like the timing in your career is one of those just like impeccable things. However, prodigal son, back to the story, as I recall, and we don't need to go into the details, there was tension, as there should have been. The
Absolutely.
top sales guy in the company leaves, right?
That always happens, right?
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in your young 20s and you feel like you're invincible, you got to go. The prodigal son's got to go and see what happens.
Absolutely.
And when he went, quite honestly, I mean, we had a little bit of tension because we went from kind of like, Yoda and the little Jedi boy to like, he was bringing his skills up.
Yeah.
And it was time for him to fly. And when he left, I was perfectly fine with it. And I said the door, even when Alex Stucker had done the same thing, I said, listen, the second he said I need to go, I said, great, door's always open. As a matter of fact, I think everybody who's left Shoals, which isn't many, before they even walk out the door, our first statement is, the door's always open.
Yeah.
Go learn life. Come back when you're ready. No issue.
It's a lifetime business. Put me in the room the day that Ben gets back at Shoals. When was it, and what was the mandate?
Oh, well, I think so, as that tension happened over that couple of years that I was gone, went to competitor, then went to Next Tracker for 2.5 years, we started seeing each other at these shows, and at first it was like, walk separate ways.
Yeah.
And then you're walking a little bit closer and closer, and now we're having conversations, and it's small talk, and then we're talking a little bit more and more and more. And now we're having full-blown conversations, and then I think it really just happened when Dean had the party at SPI like we have every year.
Yeah.
In September of 2017 at his party, and said, "Hey,
it's time.
It's time
You
for you
came
to
up
come.
to him.
Get your ass back home.
Yeah.
It's time to come back.
Too much time.
Yeah.
Slopping pigs.
You've had it, and you found out it's not so much fun.
Right.
And you kind of mentioned it before, but for me, I've always had pretty good timing.
Yeah.
So at that time, I was actually, Next Tracker was going through layoffs, right? So I was, one of those, people, but, Dean and I had, started conversations about, hey, let's get the band back together. And so, that really excited me because, Shoals has been my baby just as much as has Dean.
We grew this little monster.
We've taken this thing from like, very small company to a very, very well-known international company. And,
of F-bombers.
It's my home. So very comfortable.
What are the two things that you teach your sales team that Dean taught you? What are you like most ingrained about the way that he's built this company?
I would just say, he's a very hard worker. So,
hard work ethic.
You can say it over and over, but you can tell when somebody's got that work ethic, that burning desire to win and not lose, and very, very fiercely go after things. And so, the work ethic is number one. I think is you can look at anybody that's at our booth; they're all the same.
Yeah.
So we're cut from the same cloth. Number two, just have fun. We have fun, and I think everybody, when they pass by the booth, we work hard, but we play hard too. So we want everybody to enjoy, coming to these things. We want to get better at what we do. We want to celebrate the past year's successes, and that's what we do every year. We throw a party at SPI every year.
Yeah.
Second day of the show, and it's an appreciation party for everybody and what they're doing.
Including our competitors.
Including our competitors.
No, everyone goes. Yeah. Thousands of people.
Because at the end of the day, we're all human, right?
The one thing I tell everybody who comes to work at Shoals, you remember when you were like 16 years old, you got your driver's license, you and your buddy picked up a six-pack or two and went cruising, had a good time, got drunk, and the life was just standing in front of you, having a great time. I want everybody who works for me living in that mindset. I don't want you in the corporate mindset, because in the corporate mindset, you have an 800-pound invisible gorilla on your back, and you are a corporate player trying not to get in trouble within the organization. Screw that. I don't care. F-bomb me 50 times a day. I don't care. It's all good. I smile when you do it to me. I'll give it to you. But I want you to have that innovation spark, like life is open. Ideas. We love stupid, crazy ideas. We don't throw anything out. We try it. We build it that day. Then we laugh at ourselves. Like, how the hell do we come up with something so stupid to do?
What's the most harebrained idea you guys have brought to market that worked?
Oh,
I would say the BLA.
Yeah.
That is
What's BLA stand
so
for?
the BLA stands for Big Lead Assembly. It's an
Yeah.
above
For a big
ground.
ass lead assembly.
Yeah.
When you're
Big
politically not correct.
And a lot of people thought we were crazy when we introduced it to the market, and because we labeled it as a combiner box killer.
Yeah.
We did not want to produce another combiner box with fuses and fuse holders out there ever again. And so when we did it, people
As a
were-
manufacturer of combined
as a
boxes.
manufacturer of
as
combiners,
one of the biggest in the country,
And
if not
so-
the world.
it has turned out to be one of the best decisions we've ever done. We're well over 10 gigs of BLA in just 3 years.
Wow.
Well
Yeah.
over that. So
Yeah.
that's been the craziest one, I think.
Wow.
Everybody laughed at us. We're like, yeah, you'll get it.
Yeah.
We usually come up with ideas like the BLA. Before we really hit it and started marketing and showing it at the show, we worked on it for 7 years. So people
Wow.
think, oh, wow, you just come up with these ideas, throw them at the show. We don't, because we are an automotive grade company. We test, we reliability test, we alpha test, beta test, and we know the characteristics of that product before it ever hits the market. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't meet a minimum of a 25-year lifespan, we're out.
Yeah, so that's picking up on that. Nico, I want you to dig deeper on Dean,
I am.
starting with the quality, like all the way back,
Yeah.
1989. Ask him those questions. Let's start with Bosch and work our way up. I have to go. I really appreciate your time, brother. Dean, my father,
Yes, dear son.
I appreciate it, and we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, thanks for being on, Ben.
right,
Thanks for helping
cheers.
make this happen. So, Dean, you just hinted at what is effectively. Don't tear the wall down.
Yeah, no kidding.
You just hinted at what is effectively the origin story, the roots of why Shoals has this very, very focused attention on quality, repeatability, manufacturing as a process, servicing customers. Take us back to when you were first introduced to the world of manufacturing. And I'd love to see the evolution and how you got involved with First Solar and solar writ large.
Sure. So my career started, senior year, didn't have money to finish college. I went and took a job as a manufacturer's rep. And GE was putting a plant in Nashville, Tennessee to build blower motors for Ford. And it was a joint venture between General Electric and Bosch. So I landed a bunch of business in metal stamping and plastic injection molding as a sales rep. And every time you become very successful as a sales rep, you sit in the owner's office and he says, you're making 5 times more money than I'll ever make as a commission sales guy. So went to the next place. Within a year, I'm making more than the owner again. Did that 3 times. And at the time, back in the early 90s, most people took a 5% commission as a rep. I was taking 1, and I was still outpacing them in earnings. And about 1995, 1996, after doing that with 3 different companies, I said, I did well. I was 28 years old, kind of living at home, repping at home in my underwear and doing well. And decided, I'm going to just take a break for a year or 2. Got a little bit of cash in the bank. And Bosch heard that I'd left all these different companies, GE and Bosch. And they said, what you doing? I said, I'm painting my garage. They said, we have entrepreneurial money. Every 4 years, we decide to give it to somebody who we think's going to hit it out of the park. And GE and Bosch gave me $150,000 to start Shoals as a manufacturing company. Within about 8 weeks later, I was building about 110,000 blower motors a week for Ford, delivering as a tier 1 automotive supplier, which is about the hardest level tier manufacturer you can be. And at that level, you produce millions and millions of parts, and at what's called a PPM defect rate of 3 parts per million is the max defect rate you can have. So automotive forces you into super high volume, super low quality, super reliable product with 3 defects per million and cost reductions every year. So I did that from about 92 till about 2003. And NAFTA kicked in hard around 2002, and Bosch and GE split ways. Bosch bought out GE's motor business. And then Bosch wanted to move all of their plants out of the United States to Toluca, Mexico. So I went down to Toluca, took a look, and I saw, wow, I really don't want to move my family and open up a whole new manufacturing plant down in Toluca. Beautiful business. Bosch has helped me big time at that point, but I just didn't want to pick up and leave the country.
Yeah.
And, I get home and thinking, boy, I need to pray hard on this one, see what happens. And about a week later, I get a call from this little 8-man startup company in Perrysburg, Ohio, that wanted junction boxes. And I said, what'd you hear? How'd you hear from me? And they said, automotive, we've heard about you. We want you to build a junction box. I'm like, well, what the hell's a junction box? And I went up to visit them. And that little startup company was First Solar. It had 8 people in it. And they said, we need about 50 junction boxes a week. That's about it. And then Bosch was pushing me to move the plant. And I told Bosch, I said, thank you for everything you've done. Let's take about 6 months to kind of decouple from each other. I just can't do this. And 6 months later, I have an empty plant in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, and I get a call from First Solar, and they say, hey, we need about 50,000 of these junction boxes now. And I said, wow, great. A year? And they said, no, a week. So First Solar kind of took off into a massive exponential ramp, and quite honestly, we ramped with them. I tell everybody, they were like the solid rocket boosters on the Challenger. Going up, we held on to them. They exploded off into solar, and we held on, and just went well. And then about a year later, I get a call from this company called Cypress Electronics, who wants to get in cell manufacturing. And I was like, well, what do you want from me? And they like, just a junction box. So me and at that time, Multi-Contact, were supplying junction boxes together. And, we sold them hundreds of junction boxes a month, and then they spun off with an IPO, and it became SunPower. So at that point, I tell everybody, First Solar got really busy with SunPower. First Solar and SunPower got really busy together one night, and out popped this little baby Shoals. and between those two, they're still both of our great customers from this date. And then going to the Multi-Contact issue, Solar was ramping up like crazy, and they couldn't keep up with the volumes. And I called Multi-Contact, said, hey, why don't you let me build your product for you? They brought a bunch of people over from Switzerland and Germany, and we had discussions. And next thing you know, Shoals and Multi-Contact are in a joint venture manufacturing agreement and a customer agreement. So I became their biggest customer, and I became their biggest manufacturer. And it was very incestuous, but it worked like hell.
Hey, commercial solar friends, you've probably heard that 2020 starts the Solar Plus decade. Well, that doesn't just mean Solar Plus storage. It means Solar Plus intelligent software like DemandX, Extensible Energy's demand charge reduction software that inexpensively reduces demand and time of use charges by 30% without batteries or extra permitting. By including DemandX software in your proposals, you'll increase customer ROI, shorten payback times, and help close more commercial solar and storage deals. Contact Extensible Energy at extensibleenergy.com/Suncast for a free demand charge analysis for your commercial solar project and start closing more sales in the Solar Plus decade. I feel pretty confident to say that if you're listening to Suncast, you are an infinite learner, always looking for a new approach. And that's precisely why CPS America has agreed to help make this fresh content possible for you each and every week. CPS is the USA market share leader of three-phase string inverters, pioneering that approach since before it was cool. With more than 2 gigawatts shipped in America, their feature-rich, high-performance inverters and nimble service team stand out in a sea of sameness, just like you do. If you'd like to find out what CPS can do for your C&I or utility-scale business, you can click their logo at mysuncast.com or shoot me an email for an intro and let them know that you heard it here on Suncast.
What a tremendous story. Not only of timing, as we talked a bit about with Ben, no wonder you could see yourself in Ben, right? Yeah. The timing of his growth in the industry really mirrors a lot the timing of your growth as a young sales professional. I have so many questions just from that intro.
Sure.
But one of the things that stands out to me that I feel like entrepreneurs sometimes have a hard time pivoting from one thing to another and connecting the dots between the macro skills they've learned and the micro tasks they need to address.
Yeah.
Right? So blower motors what does that have to do with junction boxes?
Absolutely not. But it's a super complex product that it was 150,000 of them a week.
Yeah.
And if you made one bad motor, you might be sorting 500,000 of them sitting on a dock for months on end and ensure there's not the second bad one in that lot of parts. So if you didn't do your due diligence and manufacture that thing correctly and reliably, you'll spend your life sorting parts, and the small sliver of margin you might have made as profit has been given up into sorting actions.
Yeah.
And liquidated damages.
So completely not lost to me or anyone else why your reputation preceded you, and First Solar and then Cypress Electronics, now SunPower, followed suit to look for someone who had a keen attention to detail and a low defect rate, right? Looking to automotive. I think that was genius. How at 28 years old did you have the slightest idea how to avoid these defects and how to instill a manufacturing process that was repeatable and reliable?
So back in the 90s, Ford, GM, and Chrysler implemented, they all had their different quality systems, and then they switched to a automotive system. It was called QS 9000, which it's basically a Bible of how you will process a part from start to finish. It starts out with design FMEAs, into process manufacturing FMEAs, into
what are
control,
FMEAs?
Failure modes, effects, and analysis.
Okay.
So you set up, you look at the part, you figure what are all the potential things that could go wrong with it, give it a rating on a scale, and then if that rating is high enough, put in plans of how you'll design out that failure mode before it occurs.
Yeah.
So an automotive still does this. So you design these DFEMAs into these process FEMAs, which then turn into control plans, which then turns into inspection documents and process documents, final inspection documents, and then before it leaves your dock, you're doing one more inspection. So automotive, let's face it, prior to, say, 1985, 1990, all cars, no matter if they were American, German, Japanese, they were all junk, right? They were all shitty.
Yeah.
And so that's when the automotive guys got together and said, we're gonna develop this kind of manufacturing Bible that we will force all of our sub-suppliers to adhere to. And if you don't adhere to it, you're not going to sell us parts.
Yeah.
And so that brought the game up massively across the supply chain. So the one thing I really loved is this process is called a PPAP, a production parts approval process, PPAP for short. So First Solar asked me to deliver them some parts. They wanted a couple just to see my quality level.
Right.
I bought them a box of 300 parts, and within the 300, randomly pulled 30 and did complete critical inspections on all those parts and delivered them a PPAP, which is about 2 inches thick.
Yeah.
And walked in with, these parts. They looked at them and said, "What the hell's that?" I said, "Oh, those are the PPAP parts." And then I handed them over the PPAP document, and they said, "What's that?" And I reached over, slapped them on the back, and said, "I love you guys. This is going to be such a fun way to do business together." Because automotive took it to a psychotic level.
Right.
We slimmed it down to the things that mattered, and then implemented those into our schedules. And then after First Solar really started to climb, they were not a small level of manufacturer. They were kind of a mom and popper themselves that were starting to grow into high volume manufacturing. And they took a lot of the documents and procedures and processes that we had at Shoals, coming from our automotive days, and implemented them within their own processes, and then took our quality documents and asked us if they could go across their supply chain, use our documents as examples of what they want. And now even First Solar and SunPower only take parts that have been PPAP approved through the automotive process.
Talk about creating FUD in the industry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, from a sales perspective, I just love hearing how you introduce these non-existent barriers to entry that for the industry as it stands, right?
Yeah.
And I have to imagine these are some of the things that you've helped your team understand from a sales perspective. What sort of tools from your manufacturer's rep days do you feel like as you moved into solar, now you're working within the infrastructure of First Solar and SunPower, and you're starting to think about how to offer more reliable services and products into the industry, what tools did you bring in that really helped position Shoals as a leader?
The biggest thing we would do is get with our customers up front and try to understand what goals they were trying to achieve. And quite honestly, when we get early in the early 2000s and mid 2000s, every time we would go talk to customers about what they're looking for, they didn't understand reliability, quality control, and all these other things that went with it. And one of the things that happened is that back then it was all 600 volt systems. So if something went wrong and you got hit with that DC, you hurt for about a week. Your muscles are tense, right? No problem. But once we started climbing up into 1,000 and 1,500, you don't hurt. You pretty much die.
Yeah. And
so we have gone to a lot of our major customers. We go to their solar fields, and we basically do we call Kaizen events.
Yeah.
And walk their fields and look at how they install, how they're bending over to pick product up, how they're manipulating the laydown yards and the marshalling yards, and how they're actually installing. And we bring them to our factory. We teach them our factory ways that we're manufacturing. We actually operate our plant to a Sesame Street style of manufacturing, where First Solar logo at the time is red. So the First Solar process lines and people within our plant are operating Elmo. That's process Elmo. SunPower had a yellow logo. They're Big Bird. Blattner, blue, Cookie Monster. So we've implemented all these. I'm probably going to get in trouble with Disney here, but we've implemented all this color coding to within the processes. So we took very hyper complicated processes and then dumbed them down. And in manufacturing, normally what you want your operators or your team members to do is come in and learn statistical process control and all these big words they'll never want to know. We switched and said what we want you to do is we're going to design the processes to where they've been simplified so much that if you can make a mistake on the process you're running within the plant, shame on me. So I say, kind of jokingly, we want you to come in the morning, take your brain out of your head, put it on the coat rack, give me 10 hours of mindless work. On the way out, don't forget to grab your brain and see you tomorrow. And if anything goes wrong within that day, it's never your fault. We didn't make the process robust enough for you to do your job correctly. Don't worry about ever making a mistake. And what happened is, about 2013, we implemented this system, and we had about 600 employees at the time. We within a week, we repurposed 125 employees, and our production went up 30 points in that short little window. Because what we did is we've taken the burden off the operators. We took all the supervisors away.
Right.
So if you work on a First Solar line, you're wearing a red Shoals shirt. You have a red light on the machine. And when you turn the machine on, it has 6 to 12 colors you can pick from. Those are the customers who are going to run for the day. You hit the color button, loads up the process, loads up the procedures. You have no choice. You can't adjust machines, and you just operate that machine for 10 hours a day. And put your headphones on, jam out, do whatever you want. We don't care.
Right.
So all the stress has been removed, because in the automotive environment, you're taught, have a supervisor running over 3, 4, 5 people and just beat them and beat them and beat them for productivity, and do not make defects. So those operators are under stress to perform, to get quality numbers out the door, to get production levels out the door. And I'm going to get yelled at every other hour because of it. We said, first thing I tell people is, we will treat everybody like a human, not an employee. And the thing happens is, when you treat people like humans, they treat you back 3 times better, right? So we took all that old style manufacturing beat to get output, threw it out the window, and said, just give me good parts. And we've taken that system, we kind of pimped it out, and we've taught 3 or 4 of our customers, we've gone to their solar fields, and we've implemented the same color coding system on how they install their plants.
Right.
And some of those EPCs now are some of the best, most efficient EPCs in the world. You will drive up to some of their sites at the gate, and you'll see color-coded charts on what's running for the day. Is it racking going in? Right. Is it EBOS going in? Is it inverters? Is it inspections? And everybody's dressed in color-coded shirts. And what happens is, on a solar field, let's say you got a 1,000-acre field, and you got hundreds of people on that field. Everybody's in plain clothes and a safety shirt.
Yeah.
Safety vest. Well, the guy comes in the morning and he enters the field at one side, slowly meanders his way to get to his work site. Now it's break time, right? Now all of a sudden there's a bunch of people that are gathered together. You think they're working, they're socializing. Because one of the rules we've implemented at our plant is one machine, one operator, one color. The lights are not flashing. I am earning money. If that light on his machine at our plant starts to flash, that means he's working with out of cycle time. We don't do anything about it. We give him 10 minutes, like a Pavlov's dog pellet. The light will start to flash and said, hey, something's not right in this process. We give you time to correct yourself. And after 15 minutes, the lights will then call a supervisor to come see what's up.
Yeah.
And there's only 2 reasons lights are flashing in our plant. It's break time, lunchtime, or the machine's not operating, or that operator's just not getting it and operating out of sequence. So in that whole theory of constraints in the process, you have a process to say 10 machines in a lineup, and the middle one's flashing, you're all of a sudden losing money. Right? So they see that light start to flash, and like Pavlov's dog, they see that light flashing, they speed themselves up. They self-correct. They have their own confidence that they're not going to be yelled at. I sped up.
Because there are no mistakes.
Everybody else within my team is now back in pace, and life is good.
And everyone's counting on you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just in our floor. Also, the one thing we've done is we put a mezzanine above our plant floor, and I call it the Pride Rock from the Lion King, and we have our 2 lions sitting up on the Pride Rock. One is the plant manager, and the other is the materials managers. They live permanently up on that deck, and all they're doing is scanning the floor, looking for flashing lights. And is there more than 2 shirts that are gathered together? Each machine, one person, we're making money. If there's 2 people standing next to each other, we're probably not working, we're socializing. But guess what happens? They now know that it's being seen, and they correct themselves and walk away from the situation.
How do the lights start flashing?
They're timed by the process.
Yeah.
So the process knows what cycle it has to operate within. And when that cycle drops below set level, the light starts to flash.
Got it. So if 2 people are hanging out, clearly they're below their cycle time.
Amen.
And
it's costing you double the time for that person to be there. And then the other thing we do in the plant is if you see somebody in street clothes, they are a temporary labor that we are trialing to see if we like them as an employee.
Yeah.
And they stick out like a sore thumb.
Wow.
And then all my maintenance people are in tie-dye. So you could walk in our plant. I could teach you the system in 20 seconds. You could walk on my floor, 100,000 square foot plant, and you could repeat verbatim what processes are running, where my maintenance people are, where my supervisors are, and all the different things that run within that organization.
So, again, Dean, at 28, you began getting indoctrinated in this process. You've now got a few decades working under it, but what was the process for you of learning this? Because it's not intuitive. It seems the way you explain it, like, oh, that's logical. But there are thousands, millions of companies operating out of sequence by the way you define it.
Yeah. Well, I want to say, wow, all the years I went to Purdue and kind of learned things. Absolutely not. What I learned from my father from 8 years old to about 16 years old carrying a toolbox. We did commercial heating and air conditioning and electrical work up in Gary, Indiana. And kind of like a farmer out in the farm field, when his equipment breaks, he's the only one there. Yeah. If you don't fix it, you're not getting home.
Yeah.
It was the same for me. We were up on a roof working on a system, and when things break, you have to debug it yourself.
Yeah.
You have to solve the problem. Nobody's there to hold your hand. You got to figure things out. And you learn how to critically think by being in those positions and come up with ways to figure out how to get around things. And when I go to a solar field, I'd say I look for like guys like myself, the big overweight guy who's on that solar field that doesn't really want to be there because he's kind of lazy. Case in point, myself. And walk with him and ask him, how could I make you a more efficient worker? Because if I could take the guy who's overweight, sweating, kind of working slowly, doesn't want to really be on that site and make him productive, I can make everybody else super productive.
Right.
So that's how we go look for those guys or gals and say, we need to figure out how to make you an efficient employee within this system. How do I make you productive from hour 1 to hour 10 throughout the day? And that's one other thing we do, which people don't seem to want to understand, is all those people, no matter if they're in a factory or they're in a PV field, you got to limit the times they're bending over, reaching up above their shoulders, and all those things that make people hurt. Because you can treat people crappy and taskmaster them to get work out the door in 10 hours. They go home that night, they're tired as hell, they're eating a lot of leave or whatever.
Yep.
They come in the next day, they're sort of hurting. So in hour 1, they're a little less productive than they were the day before. They go through another 10 hours of being in pain. So that domino effect gets worse and worse. So figure out how to make that employee from hour 1 to hour 10 feel as good as he did when he got there.
Right.
And you're going to have a very productive work staff.
Amazing.
So at our plant, we have people on fatigue mats. We have them exercising. We have them moving. We have people actually gardening outside our plant at break to grow vegetables, right? Just to get the monotony out of their brain. And you'll have people who are happier working. And when they come in, they're happy to come to work. They're happy because they know I'm not going to bend over 100 times today, and then all of a sudden I have lower back problems.
Right.
Your healthcare costs come down, and you just have a more productive workforce.
I never expected that this would turn into a session on how to optimize for happiness in the workforce. But this is...
Happy workers have to be factory.
Yeah. I mean, this is a masterclass on thinking through and optimizing the process of not just manufacturing, but the process of success. And success is certainly something that you have experienced in your business. We talked a bit about it early on. I always ask a question that I think you sort of sit, given your personal take on how to lead company and how to be present in the industry, you have become in many ways a controversial figure. Right? There are lots of things that you've done that are controversial, but at a macro level, is there a position or maybe a few of them that you hold that you feel are particularly controversial and you stand by them?
Not really.
No.
I mean, quite honestly, I kind of gave that example of 16-year-old with your just got your driver's license and a 6-pack of beer. Mentally, I'm staying there my whole life. I'm 55 years old. I've never grown up. I grew up a little bit, and I got screwed by the companies who have thrown me out. And I say thank you for throwing me out at those junctures in my career. It seemed terrible at the time, but they taught me how to fight harder, faster, fiercer.
Yeah.
Right? Don't give up. And everybody comes to interview with us. The first thing I tell them is, all right, can you handle F-bombs?
Yeah.
Because we enjoy them at Shoals.
Yeah.
And can you keep that 16-year-old mentality?
Yeah.
And we're going to say some off-color stupid things. We're going to have a good time drinking a little much. We're going to work like mad. But I want you to be in that innovative, creative space in your mind where life was enjoyable and you had the future bright in front of you.
Yeah.
Bright light just waiting to go. I don't want the corporate crap. Don't bring it, because if you try to come to Shoals and indoctrinate corporate, it's not going to work.
Right.
Ben, you know Ben and Jason and everyone. You see my whole staff. We're an eclectic group of misfit toys, right? And we enjoy
a very efficient and effective group of misfit toys.
And because I'm allowing people to innovate and have an active voice.
So,
and the door is open to just come and act that way.
So I've seen how you have mentored and breathed life into the guys that work for you. Is that something that you experienced in your teens and 20s? And do you have mentors that you think back on? I'd love to hear what were some key lessons or takeaways from those who influenced you?
I'm going to go back to my dad again. Yeah. Really, I guess when I was at Purdue, I co-opted Inland Steel Corporation for a semester. I picked up a couple of patents in the first semester. They give you a workload of 3 or 4 things to do within your semester of engineering school as a co-op student. And quite honestly, I accomplished those things in about 4 weeks. They were way too easy tasks. And then I started doing other things and picked up a couple of patents. And on that way, I kind of pissed off a lot of people within that corporate structure. And I remember the engineer who was in charge of me, the mentor. At the time, he pulls me aside and says, Dean, you're more of a Lee Iacocca, which was running Chrysler at the time, doesn't care what he says, who he offends, and gets things done. He goes, my suggestion to you is never work for corporate America because you'll never be able to handle it. And I took his words head on, listened to it very loud and clear, and said, forget it. And that's where I started doing manufacturing rep, because I get up in the morning when I want. I worked as hard as I wanted to. And if I failed, my wallet and my paycheck showed I failed.
Right.
And I'd wake up 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, work till 10 o'clock every night trying to figure things out.
Right.
And a lot of failures. And thank God for the failures, because without those failures, you wouldn't have the success. And also those failures help keep you humble when you are successful, because a lot of companies and individuals who have, had the silver spoons in their mouth and grown. Ben's an example. He was selling furniture.
Yeah.
Right? But I saw the spark in Ben.
Yeah.
He had that spark in his eyeballs and his heart that he was going to fight no matter what.
Yeah.
And he learned very quickly. And those are the people I like to surround myself. I don't want people who are going to blah, 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 be the monosyllabic talking head that nobody wants to ever listen to. And we will try anything all the time and just screw it up.
Yeah.
We have to screw it up, because jokingly, I'll tell everybody, I was set for this, because in my dating career early on in high school and college, it took 10 no's to get the one yes for the girlfriend, right? So I was used to rejection. So rejection didn't bother me.
For sales.
Right? So I was, when I hit the no, I say, well, 3 more no's and the yes is coming, right?
Yeah, you got it in your blood.
And it didn't bother me. I took it as a hell of a way to succeed.
Well, Dean Solon, I wish that we had another hour to really dig in. Perhaps I'll have to invite you back for a round 2. This has been an absolute joy, and for those who are fans of Suncast, I know that they're going to be looking forward to hearing this and digging in. I'm grateful for Ben Macias. I'm grateful for Shoals for helping put the Podcast Lounge into SPI 2019, and grateful for you, sir, for being an example of the willingness to never give up and to bring quality and reliability to the forefront in the industry, to transfer knowledge outside of other industries into solar, and to be enigmatic, right? To be an iconoclast in that way, that to not look to your left or your right, like charge after your goal.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing how Shoals continues to create another $1 billion worth of wealth in the world and save our planet.
My pleasure. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And I'll throw out, you're more than welcome to have a little infocast or Suncast, I'm sorry, at Shoals right now on our plant floor while we're manufacturing.
That would be fantastic. We'll have to go visit Muscle Shoals, Alabama.
Portland, Tennessee, Muscle Shoals. You come anywhere you like.
Absolutely.
All
Challenge
right.
accepted.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining.
All right, Solar Warrior, that is a wrap on the first podcast for Suncast of the 20s. Let's see what this decade has to bring, yeah? And I'm really looking forward to the next decade with you. I love the super dedicated outro listener that you are. You've got an insatiable hunger for learning. Well, you, my fellow Philomath, can follow the Yellow Brick Road to resources and highlights from this and every discussion, along with the social media links, book recommendations, and more over on the blog at mysuncast.com. I recently added a big old button there on the homepage that will take you straight to it. And since I know you're here listening to the closing credits, I also know that you're dedicated to improving yourself personally and professionally. Well, I'm committed as well to that continual improvement for the show. So while you're on the website, I'd love it if you would take just 2 minutes out of your precious life and give us feedback in our first ever listener survey. I have read each and every one of the submissions that we've gotten in December, and I would love to encourage you to take the survey. Just go to mysuncast.com. Give us your feedback. Let's see how we can improve Suncast in the coming year. I'll be announcing the winner of our 2019 drawing via the newsletter for our Suncast tribe in the coming days. Thanks to everyone who joined the tribe and those who applied for our coaching spots in December. I'm looking forward to getting those calls going soon, and I'm really excited for some of the upcoming webinars and other goodies that we have teed up for you in the tribe and our Suncast Guild in the coming weeks and months. Remember, you are what you listen to. Happy New Year, and thanks again for showing up, Solar Warrior. It's half the battle.